Because here, of all places, where it belongs at the moment, we have to celebrate this great book. This great, as Michael explained, this great allegory. And what we all have to learn from it, and this is the lesson that Dickens teaches us, although he was a flawed human being, he teaches us that the real Christian message, and I speak to you as a Jew, that strange thing. The real Christian message is that we must be better people in ourselves. We must be better. I believe that that was his moral message. And here it is from the Christmas Carol. "What's today?" cried Scrooge, calling downward to a boy in Sunday clothes who perhaps had loitered in to look about him. "Aye," returned the boy with all his might and wonder. "What's today, my fine fellow?" said Scrooge. "Today," replied the boy. "Why, Christmas Day!" "It's Christmas Day," said Scrooge to himself. "I haven't missed it. The spirits have done it all in one night. They can do anything they like. Of course they can, of course they can. Hello, my fine fellow." "Hello," returned the boy. "Do you know the poulterers in the next street and one at the corner?" Scrooge inquired. "I should hope I did," replied the lad. "An intelligent boy," said Scrooge. "A remarkable boy. Do you know whether they've sold the prize turkey that was hanging up there? Not the little prize turkey, the big one." "What? The one as big as me?" returned the boy. "What a delightful boy," said Scrooge. "It's a pleasure to talk to him. Yes, my buck." "He's hanging there now," replied the boy. "Is it?" said Scrooge. "Go and buy it." "Walker!" exclaimed the boy. No, said Scrooge. "I'm in earnest. Go and buy it. And tell them to bring it here that I may give them the direction where to take it. Come back with a man, and I'll give you a shilling. Come back with him in less than 5 minutes, and I'll give you £1/crown. The boy was off like a shot. He must have had a steady hand and a trigger who would have got us a shot that fast. "I'll send it to Bob Cratchit's," whispered Scrooge, rubbing his hands and splitting with a laugh. "He shan't know who sends it. It's twice the size of Tiny Tim. Joe Miller never made such a joke as sending it to Bob's will be." The hand in which he wrote the address was not a steady one, but write it he did somehow, and went downstairs to open the street door, ready for the coming of the poulterer's man. It was a turkey! He could never have stood upon his legs, that bird. He would have snapped them off short in a minute, like sticks of sealing wax. "Why, it's impossible to carry that to Camden Town," said Scrooge. "You must have a cab." The chuckle with which he said this, and the chuckle with which he paid for the turkey, and the chuckle with which he paid for the cab, and the chuckle with which he recompensed the boy, were only to be exceeded by the chuckle with which he sat down breathless in his chair again and chuckled till he cried. Shaving was not an easy task, for his hand continued to shake very much, and shaving requires attention even when you don't dance while you're at it. But if he had cut the end of his nose off, he would have put a piece of sticking plaster over it and been quite satisfied. He had not gone far, and he dressed himself all in his best, and at last got out into the streets. When coming on towards him, he beheld the portly gentleman who had walked into his counting house the day before, and said, "Scrooge and Marriage, I believe." It sent a pang across his heart to think how this old gentleman would look upon him when they met. But he knew what path lay straight before him, and he took it. "My dear sir," said Scrooge, quickening his pace and taking the old gentleman by both his hands, "how do you do? I hope you succeeded yesterday. It was very kind of you. A Merry Christmas to you, sir." "Mr. Scrooge?" "Yes," said Scrooge, "that is my name, and I fear it may not be pleasant to you. Allow me to ask your pardon. And will you have the goodness—" Here Scrooge whispered into his ear. "Oh, bless me!" cried old gentleman, as if his breath were taken away.
My dear Mr. Scrooge, are you serious?
If you please, said Scrooge, not a farthing less. A great many back payments are included in it, I assure you. Will you do me that favour?
My dear sir,
said the other, shaking hands with him.
I don't know what to say to such munificence.
Don't say anything, please, retorted Scrooge. Come and see me. Will you come and see me?
I will,
cried the old gentleman, and it was clear he meant to do it. Thank you, said Scrooge. I'm much obliged to you. I thank you 50 times. Bless you. He went to church and walked about the streets and watched the people hurrying to and fro, and patted children on the head and questioned beggars, and looked down into the kitchens of houses and up to the windows, and found that everything could yield him pleasure. He had never dreamed that any walk, that anything, could give him so much happiness. In the afternoon, he turned his steps towards his nephew's house. He passed the door a dozen times before he had the courage to go up and knock, but he made a dash and did it. Is your master at home, my dear? Said Scrooge to the girl. Nice girl, very. Yes, sir. Where is he, my love? Said Scrooge. He's in the dining room, sir, along with mistress. I'll show you upstairs, if you please. Thank you. He knows me, said Scrooge, with his hand already on the dining room lock. I'll go in here, my dear. He turned it gently and sidled his face in round the door. Really, said Scrooge. Dear heart alive, how his niece by marriage started. Scrooge had forgotten the moment about her sitting in the corner with a footstool, or he wouldn't have done it on any account. Why, bless my soul, cried Fred, who's that? It's your Uncle Scrooge. I have come to dinner. Will you let me in, Fred? Let him in? It's a mercy he didn't shake his arm off. He was at home in 5 minutes. Nothing could be heartier. His niece looked just the same. So did Topper when he came. So did the plump sister when she came. So did everyone when they came. Wonderful party. Wonderful games. Wonderful unanimity. Wonderful happiness. But he was early at the office next morning. Oh, he was early there. If he could only be there first and catch Bob Cratchit coming late. That was the thing he'd set his heart upon. And he did it. Yes, he did. The clock struck 9. No Bob. 1:15. No Bob. He was full 18 minutes and a half behind his time. Scrooge sat with his door wide open that he might see him come into the tank. His hat was off before he opened the door. His comforter too. He was on his stool in a jiffy, driving away with his pen as if he were trying to overtake 9 o'clock.
Hello?
Growled Scrooge in his accustomed voice, as near as he could feign it.
What do you mean by coming here at this time of day?
I'm very sorry, sir, said Bob. I am behind my time.
You are?
Repeated Scrooge.
Yes, I think you are. Step this way, if you please.
It's only once a year, sir, pleaded Bob, appearing from the tank. It shall not be repeated.
I was making rather merry yesterday, sir. Now I'll tell you what, my friend,
said Scrooge.
I'm not going to stand this sort of thing any longer. And therefore,
he continued, leaping from his stool and giving Bob such a dig in the waistcoat that he staggered back into the tank again,
and therefore I am about to raise your salary.
Bob trembled and got a little nearer to the ruler. He had a momentary idea of knocking Scrooge down with it, holding him and calling to the people in the court for help in a straight waistcoat.
A Merry Christmas, Bob,
said Scrooge, with an earnestness that could not be mistaken, as he clapped him on the back.
And many a Christmas, Bob, my good fellow, that I've given you for many a year. I'll raise your salary and endeavour to assist your struggling family, and we will discuss your affairs this very afternoon over a Christmas bowl and smoking bishop. Bob, make up the fires, and buy another cold scuttle before you dot another I, Bob Cratchit.
Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all and infinitely more, and to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father. He became as good a friend, as good a master, and as good a man as the good old city knew, or any other good old city, town, or borough in the good old world. Some people laughed to see the alteration in him, but he let them laugh, and little heeded them, for he was wise enough to know that nothing ever happened on this globe for good, at which some people did not have their fill of laughter in the outset, and knowing that such as these would be blind anyway, he thought it quite as well that they should wrinkle up their eyes in grins as have the malady in less attractive forms. His own heart laughed, and that was quite enough for him. He had no further intercourse with spirits, but lived upon the total abstinence principle ever afterwards. And it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well, if any man alive possessed the knowledge. May that be truly said of us and all of us. And so, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, every one.